You know, it's incredibly easy to obsess over the flashy stuff on a new build, right? The custom countertops, the perfect paint colors, the high-end fixtures. But today, in this explainer, we're going to look at what actually dictates the long-term health of a house, its hidden circulatory system. We're breaking down a comprehensive construction plumbing checklist to make sure your next build flows perfectly. Because trust me on this, what goes on behind those walls is literally the only thing that truly matters for the viability of a building. Picture this absolute nightmare for a second. The drywall taping is absolutely pristine, that custom paint is totally dry, the gorgeous new hardwood floors are laid down, and then, out of nowhere, a tiny, mysterious damp spot appears right on the ceiling. The financial and emotional toll of ripping apart beautifully finished work just to chase a tiny drip, it is staggering. It is the exact stuff that keeps site supervisors awake at night. And it's exactly why we need to talk about the rigorous checks required before that drywall ever even goes up.
Look, a standardized checklist isn't just a bunch of bureaucratic paperwork. It is your ultimate bulletproof shield against catastrophic code violations. Think about it. Plumbing involves highly pressurized water, gravity-fed waste, and potentially hazardous sewer gases. Leaving any of that to just memory? Yeah, no, that's just asking for trouble. A checklist guarantees that every single fitting and fixture is verified against the drawings and local codes, ensuring those hazards stay safely contained exactly where they belong. So, here is our chronological roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The high cost of failure. 2. Before you break ground. 3. The rough end phase. 4. Testing before closing up. And 5. Final connections and commissioning. Let's get right into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the high cost of failure. We're starting here because verifying everything before moving forward is the absolute foundation of mitigating your risk. It's a universally known truth in this industry that plumbing failures are easily among the most expensive construction problems to fix. If a pipe bursts under a closed concrete slab, you aren't just paying a plumber for a quick 2-hour service call. You are paying for heavy concrete demolition, massive structural repairs, and some really extensive water damage mitigation. We are talking thousands upon thousands of dollars. Getting it right the first time is quite literally the only affordable way to build. Moving right along to Section 2, before you break ground. These are your crucial pre-installation checks. This is where the battle is truly won or lost, way before a single shovel hits the dirt. You've got to meticulously verify your scope against the absolute latest approved plans. That means confirming fixture counts, checking if the pipe sizes actually make sense, locking down your venting strategy, and properly separating out the storm and sanitary routing. It also means planning for your special systems. Got a recirculation pump or a complex backflow preventer? You need to know exactly where it goes. Because the absolute last thing you want is a plumber cutting through a structural load-bearing beam just to make room for a pipe somebody forgot to plan for. And when you look at a breakdown like this, you really start to grasp the sheer massive complexity of modern housing systems. You aren't just running generic pipes anymore. You're matching up Bradford White heaters, maybe Naveen tankless units, Zoller sump pumps, and all of it is controlled by Honeywell thermostats. Every single brand has specific tolerances. You absolutely have to confirm you have the exact matching pipe types, the correct gaskets, and the manufacturer-approved sealants before anyone even starts working. Otherwise, you risk voiding those warranties before the house is even finished. Okay, let's dive into Section 3, the rough-in phase. This is where the paper blueprint finally leaps into physical reality. Notice the stark contrast here. Installing gravity-fed drainage requires completely different checks than laying down pressurized water supply lines. For drainage and venting, you are totally obsessing over proper pipe slope because, well, gravity is doing all the heavy lifting. You're checking trap arms, making sure vents terminate correctly so sewer gases escape safely outside. But then you flip over to water supply lines, and your focus completely shifts. Now it's all about cleanliness, nailing the correct identification of hot versus cold lines, and making sure that insulation is perfectly applied to prevent energy loss and sweating inside your walls. Working with PEX, then you absolutely must respect those bend radius limits. You bend it too tight, and bam, you instantly compromise the structural integrity of the line. It's basically a ticking time bomb. Working with metal instead, then it's all about confirming your threading, using the specific sealing methods, and making sure your corrosion protection is firmly in place. Manufacturer guidelines, yeah, they aren't suggestions here, they're the law. And here's something incredibly crucial. You must inspect all penetrations through fire-rated slabs and walls. Plumbing doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It shares really tight spaces with electrical wiring and HVAC ducts. You have to maintain those required clearances to prevent dangerous interactions.
Plus, anytime a pipe pierces a fire-rated assembly, that gap must be properly fire-stopped to maintain the building's safety rating. It is a critical life safety detail you just cannot overlook.
Which brings us to Section 4, testing before closing up. This is your ultimate safety net.
This is absolutely your last chance to catch an error while it's still relatively cheap to fix. You have to execute a formal pressure test on the domestic water lines. Hook up a gauge, make sure it holds the required pressure for the required time per your local code. For drains, you're usually capping the system and filling it with water to ensure zero leaks. But hey, look at step 3. This is the most important part. You must diligently document these results. In this business, if it isn't documented, it simply didn't happen, as far as inspectors and future buyers are concerned.
Now, while those tests are running, don't just stand there staring at the pressure gauge. Walk the site. Actively hunt for these common failure points. Look for loose fittings that might slowly weep over time. Grab a level and put it on the drains again just to make sure a careless boot hasn't compromised your slope while another trade was working. Verify those vent tie-ins are proper and make absolutely sure no components are undersized or misrouted. These are so easy to overlook, but manual checks are absolutely vital right now. Think about it. A shutoff valve that's jammed or installed backward is totally useless in a flooding emergency. And interestingly enough, backflow prevention devices are incredibly specific about their physical orientation. You install them upside down, and they simply will not protect the municipal water supply from contamination. This is exactly where attention to detail saves the day.
Finally, we hit Section 5, final connections and commissioning. The walls are closed, fixtures are in, and it's time to bring it all together. So, the fixtures are set. Now you have to flush the lines, test the faucet flow rates, and recheck for leaks under normal, everyday operating conditions. Construction generates a massive amount of debris. You absolutely must flush those supply lines so a stray piece of grit doesn't destroy an expensive brand new faucet cartridge the very first time someone turns it on. You'll also want to confirm the water heater settings are safe, verify those relief paths are routed securely, and test out any advanced controls like your recirculation timers. Wrapping up this closeout documentation is essential because it seriously streamlines your final inspections and cuts way down on post-handover disputes. Compiling the formal test reports is your proof that you did the job right, and gathering as-built revisions and photos of the concealed work, absolute lifesavers. It tells future contractors exactly where the pipes are hidden behind those finished walls, so nobody accidentally drives a picture hanging nails straight into a pressurized water line. Finally, handing over the warranty details ensures the homeowner actually knows how to maintain their complex new systems. At the end of the day, a piece of paper just isn't enough. The checklist is literally only as strong as the human accountability driving it. You need the plumber, the inspector liaison, and the site supervisor to physically or digitally sign their names at every single milestone. That is what guarantees measurable quality outcomes across every project. It turns good intentions into undeniable proof of quality. Which leaves us with a massive, vital question for you to chew on before you start your next project. Who is taking ownership of your next build's milestones? A well-executed checklist doesn't just build a highly functional plumbing system, it builds trust and it protects a massive investment. So before you let anyone close up a wall, make sure you know exactly who is holding the pen. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer. Stay vigilant out there, and let's make sure we build it right the very first time.